for 18 minutes, I was able to see how the prayers made by my mother and grandmother were still active, protecting my family. These old prayers created an impenetrable barrier against the forces of evil, and I realized that family prayer had a lasting and profound impact. I also saw the strength of collective prayers made in church and school. When believers prayed together, their prayers created spiritual fortresses that kept demons at bay. My name is Sarah Johnson, and I am a 40-year-old science teacher living in Nashville, Tennessee. I have always been passionate about teaching and science, but I never imagined that an experience could transform my life so profoundly. It all began on the morning of September 12, 2024. That day, I woke up excited for another day of work. While driving to school, I felt a sharp pain in my chest. I tried to ignore it, thinking it was just stress, but the pain quickly intensified. As I parked the car, the pain became unbearable, and I passed out. Later, I learned that I had suffered a massive cardiac arrest and was declared clinically dead for 18 minutes. During that time, I experienced something beyond human comprehension. I felt a deep peace and saw a light that enveloped me in an indescribable way. In the spiritual realm, I witnessed the presence of dark beings, which I identified as demons, working tirelessly to keep people away from prayer. As I watched, I saw how every prayer I made had a tremendous impact on the spiritual realm. Every time I prayed, even if it was a short and simple prayer, I saw those demonic strongholds crack and crumble. It was at that moment that I realized that the faith behind the prayer was more important than the length or eloquence of the words. I saw scenes from my own life, moments when I had prayed and moments when I had not. I understood that my prayers were powerful weapons against evil, and that the demons did everything they could to distract me and prevent me from praying. The revelation was clear. Prayer had a power I had never imagined. I also witnessed the power of the prayers made by my mother and grandmother. These old prayers were still active and protecting my family. I saw how family prayer created an impenetrable barrier against the forces of evil. Collective prayers made in church and school created spiritual fortresses that kept demons at bay. As I continued my journey in this spiritual realm, I saw something even deeper: the power of generational prayer. I witnessed how the prayers made by my mother and grandmother were still active, protecting my family. These old prayers created an impenetrable barrier against the forces of evil. The feeling of security and protection was palpable, and I realized that family prayer had a lasting and profound impact. I also saw the strength of collective prayers made in church and school. When believers prayed together, their prayers created spiritual fortresses that kept demons at bay. I witnessed scenes of prayer meetings in my church, where the unity and faith of the participants formed a powerful spiritual shield. It was then that I understood the importance of collective prayer to strengthen the community and protect against the forces of evil. However, I was confronted with the reality of resistance to prayer. I saw how the demons did everything to distract me and prevent me from praying. They amplified my fatigue after a long day of work, created false urgencies that seemed more important than praying, and planted doubts in my mind about the effectiveness of my prayers. I understood that these tactics were deliberate, intended to prevent me from using the power of prayer. As I watched, I saw scenes from my own life where I had given in to these distractions and stopped praying. I felt a heaviness in my heart as I realized how many prayer opportunities one had missed. However, amid this sadness, I saw something that filled me with hope. Jesus was always waiting for me, ready to hear and answer my prayers, even when I had failed. The revelation was clear. Prayer had a power I had never imagined. Every prayer, no matter how simple or short, was a powerful weapon against evil. I saw how my prayers over the years had caused great damage to demonic strongholds and brought protection and blessings to my life and the lives of my family. Determined not to let the enemy distract me any longer, I decided that, upon returning to my body, my prayer life would be transformed. I would start praying regularly, regardless of circumstances or distractions, and encourage others to do the same. When my experience in the spiritual realm came to an end, I felt a force pulling me back into my body. The light began to fade, and suddenly, I found myself back in the school parking lot. I was surrounded by paramedics and concerned colleagues. Later, I learned that my heart had miraculously started beating again after 18 minutes, something the doctors described as a true miracle. As I recovered in the hospital, I reflected on everything I had seen and learned. Every scene and revelation was etched in my mind. I knew my life would never be the same. The experience had transformed my understanding of prayer and the importance of maintaining a consistent prayer life. I was determined to share this truth with as many people as possible. I returned to school with a new perspective and a renewed sense of purpose. I began incorporating prayer into my daily routine in the classroom, walking between the desks and silently praying for each of my students. I also encouraged my students to share their concerns and pray, always respecting the school's guidelines. To my surprise, I noticed significant changes in the students' behavior and performance. My experience also had a profound impact on my personal life. My husband, David, and I started praying together every night, something we had done sporadically before. These prayer sessions strengthened our marriage and brought us closer together than ever before. I also began praying regularly with my children, creating an environment of unity and spiritual protection in our home. Sharing my testimony was not easy, but I knew I needed to do it. I started speaking in small groups at church, then in larger meetings, and eventually, I was invited to share my story at prayer conferences. Each time I recounted my experience, I saw how people were inspired and encouraged to strengthen their own prayer lives. My journey taught me that prayer is not just a religious duty or a routine practice, but a powerful spiritual weapon. Each word of faith is a blow against the forces of evil, and every sincere prayer has the power to transform lives. The experience showed me that no matter how busy or distracted we are, we must always find time to pray. As I shared my testimony, I began to realize the impact my experience was having on the people around me. Many came to me to share their own struggles with prayer and how my story had inspired them to persevere. The truth about the power of prayer was spreading, and seeing this brought me indescribable joy. One day, while I was in the classroom, I had a moment of deep reflection. I looked at my students, all focused on their activities, and thanked God for each of them. I began incorporating short moments of prayer into my daily routine, praying silently as I walked between the desks, asking for protection and blessings for each child. I noticed that these simple acts of prayer were bringing a new atmosphere of peace and focus to the classroom. My family also benefited enormously from this change. My husband, David, and I started setting aside special time every night to pray together. These prayer sessions strengthened our marriage in ways we never imagined possible. Our children also began to participate, and it soon became a family habit. The unity and peace in our home became evident to everyone who visited us. I understood that prayer was not just a personal practice, but something that could be shared and had the power to impact entire communities. I started organizing prayer groups at church and encouraging members to pray for one another. The response was incredible, and soon our church was witnessing miracles and transformations like never before. Reflecting on my journey, I realized that the enemy has no power over us when we stand firm in prayer. Every distraction he places in our path is an attempt to keep us away from this powerful weapon. However, when we recognize the value of prayer and commit to it, we break through these barriers and advance in faith. Today, I live with a renewed purpose. I know that every prayer I make has a profound impact on the spiritual realm. My near-death experience showed me that no matter how busy or distracted I may be, I must always find time to pray. And this truth is something I want to share with the world. Each of us has the power to transform our lives and the lives of those around us through prayer. As time passed, my life continued to be transformed by my new understanding of prayer. I was determined to live a fervent prayer life and help others discover the power in every word spoken in faith. I began to see incredible changes around me, both at school and in my community. At school, I noticed that my students were more focused and calm. I started to see improvements in their academic performance and behavior. The small prayers I made while walking around the classroom had a real and tangible impact. The parents of my students also noticed the changes and began to seek me out for advice on how they could incorporate prayer into their own families. My family life was also flourishing. My husband, David, and I strengthened our marriage through joint prayer. Praying together every night became a sacred moment for us, where we shared our fears, hopes, and gratitudes. Our children, inspired by our example, began to develop their own prayer practices, creating an environment of unity and spiritual protection in our home. My friends and church members began to notice the changes in me and sought me out to learn more about my experience. I shared my testimony in small groups, prayer meetings, and eventually at conferences. Each time I told my story, I felt a deep connection with those who listened. I saw how people were inspired to strengthen their own prayer lives and persevere, even in the face of distractions and challenges. With each passing day, my understanding of the importance of prayer deepened. I realized that the enemy had no power over me when I was firm in prayer. Every distraction he placed in my path was an attempt to keep me away from this powerful weapon. However, by recognizing the value of prayer and committing to it, I broke through those barriers and advanced in faith. Today, I live with renewed purpose. I know that every prayer I make has a profound impact on the spiritual realm. My near-death experience showed me that no matter how busy or distracted I may be, I must always find time to pray. And this truth is something I want to share with the world. Each of us has the power to transform our lives and the lives of those around us through prayer. Today, as I look back, I see how my life has been radically transformed. My near-death experience not only saved my life, but gave me a new perspective and purpose. I know that prayer is a powerful weapon that we all have at our disposal, and I am determined to share this truth with as many people as possible. My classroom continues to be a place of learning and transformation. The simple prayers I make daily have a positive impact on my students, bringing peace and focus. They are more engaged and perform better, something that parents and other teachers have also noticed. Knowing that my prayers are making a difference fills me with joy and gratitude. My family is more united than ever. My husband, David, and I continue to pray together every night, strengthening our marriage and our faith. Our children are developing their own prayer practices, creating an environment of love and protection in our home. These changes are a living testimony to the power of prayer and the importance of maintaining this practice in our lives. At church, I continue to share my testimony and lead prayer groups. Seeing the faith and dedication of people grow has been an incredibly rewarding experience. Together, we are building a stronger and more resilient community, ready to face any challenge with the strength that comes from prayer. Reflecting on my journey, I remember the words of Jesus that showed me that every prayer matters. No matter how busy or distracted we are, we must always find time to pray. Every word spoken in faith has the power to transform our lives and the lives of those around us. The enemy may try to distract us, but now I know that persistence in prayer is the path to victory. I invite you to do the same. Do not underestimate the power of your prayers. Remember that every prayer, no matter how simple, is a blow against the forces of evil. Persevere in prayer and see how your life and the lives of those around you can be transformed. This is the journey of Sarah Johnson, and I hope it inspires many to discover and embrace the power of prayer.